You know, I never imagined a rocking chair could spark a neighborhood war, let alone be called an eyesore by someone with a clipboard and a vendetta. But that's exactly what happened in our little corner of Meadowbrook Estates, a sleepy suburb in Ohio, where the biggest drama used to be whose dog dug up whose tulips. That all changed when Linda Hargrove, our HOA president, decided an old man's chair was a threat to her vision of cookie-cutter perfection. I'm Jake, a single dad and freelance photographer who moved to Meadowbrook 5 years ago with my two girls, Sophie and Mia. We live across from Mr. Walter Thompson. Everyone calls him Walt, a 87-year-old widower who's been here since the neighborhood was just dirt and dreams in '59. Walt's a retired Navy mechanic, hands still steady despite the years, always tinkering on something. Most days you'd find him on his porch in this beat-up but beautiful rocking chair, sipping iced tea, waving at kids and tossing out peppermint candies from a rusty tin. "This chair's my time machine," he'd say with a grin when I dropped by with a batch of my mom's pecan pie. Built it in '71 from scraps of a P-51 Mustang, flew 40 missions in the Pacific. Couldn't let that history rot in a junkyard. That chair was something else, I'll give you that. The frame was aircraft aluminum, worn smooth from decades of use, glinting like silver in the sunset. The armrests, repurposed control yokes curved just right. The rockers came from the plane's wing struts, and the seat was oak polished to a warm glow from Walt rocking through 50 years of memories. Comfort like this, he'd chuckle, patting the armrest you don't get from IKEA. Designed for dogfights, good for daydreams. My girls loved it. Sophie would beg Walt for stories about the pilots, while Mia just liked tracing the scratches in the metal, imagining they were battle scars. As a photographer, I was obsessed too. I'd shot that chair 100 times, golden hour, misty mornings, you name it. The way light danced on that aluminum told a story no words could. Meadowbrook was a chill place until Linda rolled in from some fancy gated community in Arizona, all high heels and PowerPoint slides, running for HOA president like it was a Senate seat. She won on a promise to modernize the neighborhood, translation, make every house look like it came from a catalog. Suddenly, we had a 30-page rulebook dictating mailbox colors, lawn heights, even how many wind chimes you could have. "We're elevating Meadowbrook's prestige," she'd preach at meetings, flipping through slides of soulless McMansions. "But we need uniformity to attract elite buyers." Elite buyers, my ass, nobody here was selling, and most of us liked our quirky little street just fine. Trouble started one crisp October morning when I saw Linda strutting up Walt's driveway, pearls bouncing, clipboard gleaming like a weapon. I was packing my camera gear for a shoot, but the look on Walt's face, confusion replacing his usual smile, made me pause. Linda handed him a paper, spun on her heels, and marched off, her bob haircut, not budging an inch. I jogged over. "You okay, Walt?" I asked, finding him squinting at the notice like it was written in hieroglyphs. "Jake, my chair's apparently a crime scene," he said, handing me the paper, his voice half amused, half annoyed. First time in 53 years anyone's had a problem with it. The notice, fancy cardstock with the Meadowbrook logo, was a violation citing non-compliant outdoor furniture. Walt's chair, with its industrial materials, violated Section 12.4 of the Aesthetic Guidelines. He had 2 weeks to swap it for something from Linda's approved catalog or face $100 daily fines. An eyesore, I scoffed, rereading the letter. "This chair's older than half the houses here." Walt just sighed, his calloused hands resting on the armrests. "Guess times change, Jake." Not always for the better. At the next HOA meeting, packed into the community center with its creaky chairs, Walt stood up, his voice steady like he was addressing a flight crew. "I'd like an exemption for my chair," he said, holding the notice. "It's been on my porch since Carter was president, and it's got historical value." Linda, perched behind her table like a queen, barely looked up from her agenda. "Mr. Thompson, the rules are clear. Porch furniture affects the entire street's appeal." Walt didn't back down. Nobody's complained in 5 decades, he said. It's not just a chair, it's from a Mustang that flew in World War II. Linda's smile was all teeth, no warmth. Standards evolve, Mr. Thompson. What worked in the 70s doesn't cut it now. My neighbor Kathy, who's lived next to Walt for 25 years, piped up. That chair's a treasure. My kids wave at it every time we drive by. But Linda shut it down. Nostalgia doesn't trump regulations. The committee's curated several tasteful options to enhance the neighborhood. I couldn't stay quiet. Linda, with respect, that chair's a piece of history, a veteran like Walt. You can't just erase that. Her eyes flicked to me dismissive. Creative repurposing isn't in the guidelines, Jake. 2 weeks or the fines start. Things got uglier. Linda sent certified letters, taped friendly reminders to Walt's door, even drove by his house, snapping photos like a private eye. Walt started looking worn down. One evening I found him rocking in the chair, staring at the horizon, face heavier than I'd ever seen. "This chair's more than wood and metal, Jake," he said softly, fingers tracing the armrest. "After my Ellen passed, I'd sit here, feel her beside me. She'd knit right there, humming old tunes. 20 years she's been gone, but this chair, it's where I find her." My chest tightened. "We're not letting Linda take it, Walt," I said. He nodded, but his eyes were distant. "Been thinking of moving to my son's place in Texas. Maybe this is a sign." The breaking point came when Linda showed up with a guy in a cheap suit, some HOA lackey named Greg, clutching a tablet like a shield. "Mr. Thompson," she announced, all smug triumph, "this is Greg from the compliance team. We're here for a final inspection before fines kick in tomorrow." Walt, still in his chair, raised an eyebrow. Didn't know a chair needed a SWAT team. Linda's smile was ice. "Greg's documenting violations. Non-compliance ends at midnight." Greg mumbled, "Just procedure, sir," snapping photos like he was at a crime scene. Walt leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. "Mind telling me what's so offensive about my chair? The aluminum, the oak? Or just that it's not from your catalog?" Linda sighed like she was explaining gravity to a toddler. "It's makeshift, industrial, and eyesore." I jumped in, blood boiling. "An eyesore? It's from a plane that fought for freedom," Linda snapped back. "History doesn't excuse rule breaking." Walt's eyes narrowed. "You know the life expectancy of a P-51 pilot in 43, about 12 missions. That plane flew 40. Its crew risked everything so you could write rule books." He pulled out a faded photo from his wallet, a young pilot grinning by the Mustang. "This is Lieutenant Tom Harper. Flew 35 of those missions. His son sent me this and his wings." Walt lifted a chain with silver wings glinting. "Said they belong with the plane." Even Greg lowered his tablet, but Linda didn't flinch. "Charming story, but the chair goes by tomorrow." Walt's voice turned steel. "This isn't about property values, ma'am. It's about what we value: history, sacrifice, or just appearances." Linda's face reddened. "Remove it or pay the fines, and that jungle of a garden, it's next." She stormed off, Greg scrambling behind. Walt's hands shook, not with fear but fury. "My garden," he muttered. "Ellen and I started it in 55. Planted every year since." I gripped his shoulder. "She's gone too far, Walt, way too far." That night, Walt's eyes had a spark I hadn't seen before. "Jake," he said, "time to call the big guns. We don't start fights, but we finish them." By morning, I'd canceled my shoots, turned my dining table into a war room, and roped in Sophie and Mia, who dubbed it Operation Chair Liberty. Sophie, my 14-year-old, dug into HOA laws, while Mia, 12, went door to door with a petition. I called my sister, a property lawyer, who confirmed Walt's chair predated the rules, technically untouchable. Then Walt's buddies showed up, 4 old Navy vets, 80s, and up rolling in with pickup trucks and a restored Jeep. His porch became a workshop, tools everywhere, aluminum gleaming as they polished the chair to a mirror shine. Meet the crew. Eddie, who served with Walt in Korea. Sam another mechanic, Joe a Vietnam vet, and Phil a VFW pal. "We're making this chair a monument," Sam said, sanding an armrest. They added a small flag, a plaque for the Mustang's crew, and a pergola to frame it like a memorial. Phil's grandson launched a GoFundMe pulling in $600 from vets groups. Neighbors brought casseroles. Kathy dropped off a 1983 newsletter calling Walt's chair a local gem. Mia's petition got 50 signatures. Sophie found a 1989 exemption clause for historically significant items. We were ready. When Linda pulled up that evening, sunglasses on despite the dusk, she froze at the sight, Walt's porch glowing under solar lights, the chair shining, vets in their caps, standing tall, neighbors watching. "What is this?" she barked. Walt stepped forward, straight as a flagpole. "Ms. Hargrove, meet my friends. We're here because of the plane that built this chair." Linda faltered but doubled down. "This display makes it worse." "Fine start now," I held up Sophie's research. "Actually, Section B, Paragraph 5, historical exemptions protect this chair." Kathy waved her newsletter. "It's been a landmark since '83. Eddie, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "I curated naval artifacts for 35 years. This chair's museum-worthy. The Navy's already asking to archive it." Joe added, "Local news is doing a Memorial Day piece on it, too." Linda's confidence cracked her eyes, darting to the crowd. Walt sealed it. "I've lived here 65 years, Linda. This chair's about remembering my wife, those pilots, what matters. You tell me what's more important." Mia, bold as ever, waved her petition. The neighborhood voted. The chair stays. Linda caved, not gracefully, but she caved. She granted an exemption, dubbing the chair the Mustang Memorial. Walt promised to keep it pristine, but the story didn't end there. A local paper ran a piece on Walt, then a veterans mag, then a news channel for Memorial Day. Soon, Walt's porch was a pilgrimage site, vets, kids, even tour buses. Linda, to my shock, leaned into it, pushing to make Walt's yard a historical site with a sign and parking. His garden. Now an educational exhibit on wartime resilience, complete with labels. 6 months later, Meadowbrook's property values were up 8% and Linda's rulebook had a new heritage section. Walt holds court on his porch, telling Mustang stories to wide-eyed kids. Sometimes I catch Linda there, jotting notes as Walt explains the control yokes her clipboard softer somehow. Last week, she helped him apply for a grant to display Lieutenant Harper's wings. For posterity, she said, almost human. Walt still rocks at sunset, the aluminum glowing his eyes, seeing things only he knows. History's not just in books, he says, patting the chair. It's here in what we hold on to. That chair's our mascot now in the newsletter at our 4th of July parade. But it's more than that. It's a reminder sometimes you fight for what matters, even if it's just an old man's chair. Sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest stories. So what do you think? Was Linda just doing her job, or did she cross a line? Ever had to stand up to a rule that didn't make sense? Drop a comment. Share your story. I'm reading everyone. If this hits you, give it a like, share it with someone who'd get it. Let's keep these stories alive.